The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport of the human ship. Captain Jake Morrison stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the purple and silver planet grow larger as they approached. Thessara Prime, home to the Valerium Empire, a place humans had only dreamed of visiting until 6 months ago. "We're being hailed again," Lieutenant Amy Price said from her station. She brushed a strand of blonde hair from her face and looked at Jake with those sharp green eyes that missed nothing. "Third time in an hour. They really like their protocols." Jake smiled slightly. "Answer them. Let's be polite." The communication screen flickered to life. A tall Valerium officer appeared, his skin shifting from deep blue to calm silver. The aliens were beautiful in a strange way. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with smooth features and skin that changed colors based on their emotions. Right now, silver meant professional courtesy. "Human vessel Horizon's Edge, you are cleared for landing Bay 7. You will be escorted to your quarters immediately. The ceremony begins at sunset. Do not be late." The Valerium's voice was musical but firm. "Understood. We appreciate your hospitality," Jake replied. The screen went dark. Amy turned in her chair. "Friendly bunch." "They're testing us," said Chris Palmer from the engineering console. The stocky engineer had been quiet most of the trip, but he knew people. "Seeing if we'll get offended or make mistakes. Standard procedure when you don't trust someone yet." Jake nodded. Chris was right. The Valerium had been isolated for centuries. They were powerful, advanced, and not particularly interested in making friends. But something had changed. They'd sent an invitation to Earth's government, and Earth had sent Jake's small team to explore it. The ship shuddered slightly as they entered the atmosphere. Through the viewport, Jake could see sprawling cities of crystal and metal, towers that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns, gardens that seemed to float in the air. The Valerium had technology that made human achievements look primitive. "Landing in 2 minutes," Amy announced. Jake straightened his uniform. Navy blue with gold trim. Simple compared to what the Valerium would be wearing, but it was clean and proper. "Remember, we're here to observe and learn. Don't touch anything unless invited. Don't ask too many questions. And above all, be respectful." "Yes, sir," Amy and Chris said together. The ship settled onto the landing platform with barely a bump. Chris was an excellent pilot when he needed to be. The 3 humans gathered their minimal belongings and walked to the airlock. Jake took a deep breath before opening it. The air of Thessara Prime was sweet, almost like flowers mixed with something metallic. A delegation of Valerium waited for them. 6 guards in armor that seemed to be made of living light, and 1 official in flowing robes of deep purple. "Welcome, humans," the official said. His skin rippled with patterns of gold and green. Curiosity, Jake had learned from the briefing materials. "I am Coordinator Veln. You will follow me." They walked through corridors of polished stone that gleamed like mirrors. Other Valerium stopped to stare at the humans. Their skin shifted through various colors. Mostly curiosity, some suspicion shown by dark red patches, and occasional flashes of amusement in bright yellow. Jake felt like an animal in a zoo, but he kept his face calm and neutral. Their quarters were luxurious. 3 connected rooms with furniture that adjusted to their size, food synthesizers programmed with human nutritional data, and windows overlooking a garden filled with plants that hummed softly. "You have 2 hours to prepare," Veln said. "Then you will be escorted to the Crystalline Palace. Tonight, Princess Lyra will be presented to the galactic community. Many species will attend. You will witness history." After Veln left, Amy collapsed onto a chair. "This place is incredible. And terrifying. Did you see how they looked at us?" "Like we're interesting bugs," Chris muttered. He was already examining the room's technology with fascination. Jake walked to the window, We're the newcomers, the unknowns. They've heard about humans, our wars, our messy history. They're wondering if we're worth their time. No pressure then, Amy said dryly. The 2 hours passed quickly. Jake changed into his formal uniform, the one with all his service medals. If the Valerium respected anything, it was military achievement. Amy wore her dress uniform as well, and Chris managed to look presentable despite his usual preference for work clothes. The escort arrived exactly on time. They were taken through the city in a vehicle that floated silently above the ground. The crystalline palace rose ahead of them like a mountain made of gems. It caught the setting sun and threw light in every direction. Inside, the ceremony hall was vast. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species filled the space. Jake recognized a few from the Galactic database. The insectoid Kresh, the plant-based Verdani, the mechanical Synthax, and many others he'd never seen before. The humans were given seats near the back, appropriate for such new members of the galactic community. Jake didn't mind. It gave him a better view of everything. Music began, though Jake couldn't identify the instruments. It sounded like wind and water and starlight, all mixed together. The crowd fell silent. Queen Aurelia entered first. She was magnificent, taller than the other Valerium, her skin a constant flowing pattern of silver and deep purple. She wore a crown that seemed to be made of frozen lightning. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. Behind her came Princess Lyra, younger, more delicate in appearance, her skin shifting nervously between blue and soft pink. She wore white robes that trailed behind her like mist. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and for just a moment, they met Jake's. He saw fear there, hidden beneath a mask of royal composure. The ceremony began. Speeches in languages Jake didn't understand. Demonstrations of Valerium culture and technology. Princess Lyra stood at the center of it all, the focus of hundreds of eyes. Jake found himself watching the crowd more than the ceremony. Old habit from his military days. Look for what doesn't fit, what's out of place. And then he saw it. A flicker. A tiny distortion in the air near one of the palace's decorative pillars. His combat instincts screamed warning. He'd seen that kind of distortion before, during the border wars. Cloaking technology. His eyes tracked the distortion as it moved, slowly, carefully, positioning itself with a clear line of sight to the princess. Jake's heart began to pound. He looked at the Valerium guards. They stood at attention watching the crowd, but they hadn't noticed. They weren't expecting a threat here, in their most sacred space. The distortion stopped moving. Jake saw the faintest outline of a weapon forming, an energy signature building. He had maybe 3 seconds to decide. Amy noticed his tension. "Jake, what's wrong?" But he was already moving, pushing past surprised attendees, his legs carrying him forward as the weapon's energy signature spiked. Princess Lyra began her speech, her voice clear and musical, completely unaware. Jake ran. Time seemed to slow down as Jake pushed through the crowd. Valerium and other aliens turned to stare at the human running toward the princess. Guards started to move, but they were too far away. Their attention had been on external threats, not something already inside the palace. Princess Lyra's voice continued, speaking words of unity and peace. She had no idea death was pointing at her from 15 feet away. Jake's military training took over completely. Calculate distance, calculate speed. The weapon would fire in less than 2 seconds. He couldn't reach the assassin in time to stop them, but he could reach the princess. The shimmer in the air solidified slightly as the assassin prepared to fire. Jake caught a glimpse of dark armor, technology designed to bend light around the wearer. Expensive, professional. He had 1 second. Jake launched himself forward in a diving tackle, arms outstretched. Princess Lyra's eyes went wide as she saw him coming. The entire hall erupted in shouts and confusion. The plasma bolt fired. Jake felt it hit him in the shoulder and side, a burning impact that seemed to tear through his entire body. The weapon was designed to punch through Valerium energy shields and cook their internal organs instantly. Human bodies didn't have energy shields, but they were built differently. Denser bones, more compact organs, tougher tissue. It still hurt worse than anything Jake had ever experienced. He crashed into the princess, wrapping his arms around her and twisting so his body stayed between her and the shooter. They hit the floor hard. Jake felt his ribs crack from the impact, adding to the screaming pain from the plasma wound. The assassin's cloak failed completely as palace security systems finally activated. A Valerium in dark armor stood revealed, already charging another shot. But the guards were moving now. 6 of them hit the assassin from different angles, their weapons firing bolts of blue energy that overwhelmed the assassin's personal shields. The attacker went down hard, stunned but alive. Jake lay on the cold floor, his vision starting to blur. He could feel wetness spreading across his side. Blood, a lot of it. The princess was underneath him, her skin flashing rapid colors of shock and fear. "Get him off me," she screamed. "Guards!" Hands pulled Jake away, but gently. He saw Queen Aurelia appear above him, her face a mask of concern and fury. Her skin was pure black with streaks of red. Rage and fear mixed together. "Get the royal physicians, now!" The queen's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Amy and Chris fought their way through the crowd. Amy dropped to her knees beside Jake, her hands pressing against his wound. "Stay with me, Captain. That's an order." Jake tried to smile, but only managed a grimace. "Bad habit of mine. Throwing myself at problems." "Shut up and save your strength," Amy said, but her voice shook. The Valerium physicians arrived in seconds, carrying equipment that hummed and glowed. They scanned Jake with devices that made his skin tingle. "Severe tissue damage," one of them said in clipped tones. "Plasma burn through the shoulder and rib cage. His species has different physiology than ours. We need to adapt the treatment." "Then adapt it," Queen Aurelia said. Her voice was absolute command. "Save him. That is not a request." They lifted Jake onto a floating stretcher. The movement sent fresh waves of pain through his body. He caught a glimpse of Princess Lyra standing nearby, her robes torn from the fall, staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. The queen placed her hand on Jake's forehead. The touch was cool, and sent a strange tingling through his skin. She spoke in her own language, words that sounded ancient and formal. "What did she say?" Jake managed to ask Amy. Amy's translator had picked it up. Her face went pale. She swore an oath, something about sacred blood and eternal debt. Then Jake's vision went dark. He woke in fragments over the next hours. Pain, voices speaking in urgent tones, the hum of machines, cool hands touching his skin. At one point he felt something being injected into his bloodstream, and his whole body went cold, then hot, then cold again. When he finally woke fully, he was in a white room filled with soft light. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, most of it completely unfamiliar. His shoulder and side were wrapped in something that glowed faintly blue. Amy sat in a chair beside his bed, her head down, asleep. Chris stood at the window, looking out at the alien city. "How long?" Jake's voice came out as a croak. Chris spun around. "You're awake. Thank God." 3 days, Captain. You've been out for 3 days." Amy jerked awake, nearly falling out of her chair. "Jake," she grabbed his hand. "You stupid, heroic idiot. Do you have any idea how close you came to dying?" "Pretty close, I'm guessing." Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. His body felt wrong somehow. Not just injured wrong, but different wrong. "Don't move," Amy ordered. "The Valerium physicians use some kind of advanced biotechnology to save your life. They said human physiology is different enough that they had to improvise. They're not sure about all the side effects yet." The door opened and Queen Aurelia entered, followed by Princess Lyra and 2 guards. The queen moved with purpose, her skin a calm silver now, but her eyes were intense. "Captain Morrison," she said, "you have awakened. Good. We have much to discuss." Jake tried to sit up properly this time, ignoring the protest from his body. "Is the princess all right?" Princess Lyra stepped forward. She looked different in simple clothing, rather than formal robes, younger. "I am unharmed because of you. The assassin's weapon would have killed me instantly." "Who was it?" Jake asked. "A member of the Shadow Caste," Queen Aurelia said. Her skin flickered dark red for a moment. "A group that believes our social structure is unjust. They are not entirely wrong, but their methods are unacceptable. This assassin will face justice." "I'm glad the princess is safe," Jake said, "and I'm grateful for your medical help. Once I'm recovered enough to travel, my team and I should probably head home. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic visit." The Queen's expression became unreadable. "That is what I must discuss with you, Captain. You cannot leave." Silence filled the room. "I'm sorry," Jake said carefully. Queen Aurelia moved closer. "By taking the attack meant for Princess Lyra, you have invoked an ancient law of my people, the debt of sacred blood. You shed your blood to preserve royal blood. By our oldest traditions, you are now bound to this family until the debt is repaid." Amy stood up. "With respect, Your Majesty, Captain Morrison is a citizen of Earth. He has duties and responsibilities there." "I understand," the Queen said. "But I cannot change our laws, not even for someone who saved my daughter's life. If I release him now, before the debt is properly satisfied, it would bring shame upon my entire bloodline. More than that, it would suggest his sacrifice meant nothing." Princess Lyra looked uncomfortable. "Mother, surely there is some way." "There is," the Queen said. "The debt can be repaid only by you, daughter, or by me as matriarch of the family. But such repayment takes time and requires proper ceremony. Until then, Captain Morrison is considered part of the royal household. He will be treated with all honors due to that position." Jake felt his stomach sink. "So I'm a prisoner." "You are an honored guest," the Queen corrected. "But yes, you cannot leave Thessara Prime until the debt is satisfied." "I am sorry, Captain. I wish it could be otherwise. But law is law, and honor is honor." The medical wing became Jake's world for the next week. The Valerium physicians visited him daily, running tests and studying the effects of their emergency treatment. They spoke to each other in their own language, which Jake's translator couldn't fully process, but their gestures suggested both fascination and concern. On the 8th day, one of the physicians finally explained. "Your cellular structure has been altered," the doctor said. His name was Physician Core, and his skin tended towards scholarly blue most of the time. "The biotechnology we use to save your life has integrated with your human biology in unexpected ways. You heal faster now, much faster, and you can perceive energy fields." Jake held up his hand, turning it over. It looked normal to him. "What does that mean exactly?" Core activated a device that projected a holographic image of Jake's cells. "See these markers? They are Valerium in origin. Your body accepted them rather than rejecting them. We have never seen this in another species. Most aliens die when exposed to our biotechnology. But humans, it seems, are adaptable in ways we did not anticipate. So what can I do now that I couldn't before?" "Look at me," Core said. "Really look, not with your eyes, but with your new perception." Jake tried. At first, nothing happened. Then he relaxed, stopped trying so hard, and suddenly he could see a faint shimmer around Core's body. Like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but more structured. Patterns that seemed to flow and pulse. "I see it," Jake whispered. "Your energy field." "Exactly," Core said with satisfaction. "All Valerium can see this naturally. It is how we read emotions in each other. The colors of our skin reflect our internal energy state. You can now perceive what we perceive, at least partially. Jake looked at his own hands again and saw the faint shimmer around them too. His energy field was different from Core's. More chaotic, less organized, but definitely there. Will this affect my ability to return to normal human life? Core's skin flickered uncertain yellow. We do not know. The changes appear permanent, but they should not prevent you from functioning normally among your own people. You have simply been enhanced. After Core left, Jake experimented with his new ability. He could see the energy fields of the guards outside his room, the patterns shifting as they talked quietly to each other. He could sense when someone approached before they entered. It was strange, but not unpleasant. Amy and Chris visited every day. They'd been allowed to stay on Thessara Prime, and had been given quarters in a building near the palace. Earth's government had sent several messages expressing concern about Jake's situation, but they were being diplomatic. Nobody wanted to offend the Valerium and destroy humanity's first major alien alliance. Basically, you're on your own, Amy told him bluntly during one visit. The politicians are calling you a hero and talking about your sacrifice, but they're not demanding your release. Can't risk the bigger picture. Jake had expected as much. What have you two been doing? Chris grinned. Learning. The Valerium engineers are incredible. They've shown me technology that will take Earth 50 years to develop. Amy's been studying their political structure, which is complicated and kind of messed up, Amy added. They have this caste system. The royal family and nobility at the top, then scholars and artisans, then laborers, and at the bottom, the shadow caste, who do all the jobs nobody else wants. They have almost no rights. That's what the assassin was, Jake remembered. Shadow caste. The queen knows it, but she's bound by tradition. Change comes very slowly here. On the 12th day after the assassination attempt, Jake was finally cleared to leave the medical wing. He'd expected to be taken back to guest quarters, but instead he was escorted to a suite of rooms in the palace itself. The rooms were huge. 3 bedrooms, a common area, a private bathroom with a pool-sized tub, and a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Servants had already stocked the rooms with human-appropriate furniture and food. This is too much, Jake told the guard who'd escorted him. The guard's skin showed professional silver. You are considered royal household now. These are the appropriate accommodations. That evening, Princess Lyra visited him. She arrived without guards, which seemed unusual, and she looked nervous. Her skin kept shifting between different shades of blue and pink. May I come in? She asked. Of course, Princess. She sat in one of the chairs, her posture stiff and formal. I wanted to thank you properly for saving my life. I have not had the opportunity before now. You don't need to thank me, Jake said. Anyone would have done the same. Her skin flashed bright yellow. Amusement. No, they would not have. I have reviewed the security footage from the ceremony. You identified the threat when none of our guards did. You acted without hesitation. You nearly died. Most beings would not do such things for a stranger. Maybe most beings aren't human. She studied him with eyes that were far more perceptive than he'd expected. Yes, I have been learning about your species. Humans are strange. You are violent and chaotic, yet also capable of great compassion. You fight terrible wars among yourselves, yet you also have concepts of honor and sacrifice that surpass many older species. We're complicated, Jake admitted. I want you to know that I am working to release you from the debt, Lyra said suddenly. I do not believe it is right to keep you here against your will. You saved me. That should not result in your imprisonment. Your mother said the law is clear. The law is old, perhaps too old. Her skin darkened slightly, showing determination. I am the one who received your protection. I should have the authority to release you. But my mother fears that doing so improperly would dishonor both you and our family. She is not cruel. She is bound by tradition. Jake found himself liking the princess. She seemed genuine, not at all the pampered royal he'd initially assumed. How long does it usually take to repay this kind of debt? The law has not been invoked in over 300 years. The last time involved a minor noble who saved a royal child from drowning. He stayed with the family for 2 years, before the debt was formally satisfied through a series of ceremonies and exchanges of honor. 2 years. Jake felt his heart sink. "I will find a faster way," Lyra promised. "You have my word." Over the following weeks, Jake settled into a strange new routine. He was given the freedom to move throughout most of the palace. Guards accompanied him, but they were ceremonial rather than restrictive. He attended formal dinners, observed council meetings, and slowly learned the complex web of Valerian politics. Queen Aurelia spoke with him regularly. She seemed genuinely interested in human perspectives, and would ask him questions about Earth culture and history. He realized she was not the distant, cold ruler she appeared to be in public. In private, she was thoughtful and burdened by the weight of her responsibilities. "My people resist change," she told him one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. "They believe our ways are perfect because they are ancient, but I see the cracks forming. The shadow caste grows more restless each year. Other species advance while we cling to old traditions. Your presence here, Captain, has reminded me that there are other ways to live." "Change is hard," Jake said, "but usually necessary." Spoken like someone whose species has survived many changes. Jake began to notice things the Valerium missed. Security weaknesses, patterns in servant movements that suggested communication networks the nobility wasn't aware of. His military training, combined with his new ability to read energy fields, gave him unique insights. One day, he pulled aside the head of palace security, a stern Valerium named Commander Sethis. "The palace has a blind spot in the eastern gardens," Jake said. "The patrol rotations leave a gap of approximately 4 minutes every hour. Someone who knew the schedule could use it to move undetected." Sethis's skin went dark red. Anger or embarrassment, Jake wasn't sure which. "That is impossible. Our security is perfect." "Humor me. Watch the recordings." 2 days later, Sethis returned. His skin was humble blue. "You were correct. We have adjusted the patrols. How did you see what we could not?" "Fresh eyes," Jake said, "and different training." But the truth was more complicated. Jake had noticed an unusual concentration of shadow caste servants moving through that area, and their energy fields showed patterns of anxiety and secrecy. Something was being planned. He brought his concerns to the Queen during their next meeting. She listened carefully, her skin showing the deep purple of serious consideration. "You believe there will be another attack?" "I believe the first assassination attempt was not isolated," Jake said. "The shadow caste is organized, and they have support from somewhere, possibly from outside the Empire." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she made a decision. "You will work with Commander Sethis. Review our security. Find the weaknesses. I trust your judgment, Captain." It was the first time she'd shown that level of trust. Jake realized his status had shifted from honored prisoner to valued advisor. But that night, as he studied maps of the palace and city, he noticed something else. A pattern in the security reports. Small incidents that seemed unrelated. A noble who had been meeting with off-world traders. Shipments of unusual technology. Financial irregularities in certain districts. It all pointed to someone inside the royal family working against the Queen. The question was, who? And how much time did they have before the next move was made? 6 weeks had passed since Jake arrived on Thessara Prime. What should have been a 3-day diplomatic visit had become something else entirely. He stood on his balcony in the early morning, watching the 3 moons set over the crystal towers of the city, and wondered if he would ever see Earth again. "You are awake early," Princess Lyra's voice came from behind him. Jake turned. The princess had taken to visiting him in the mornings, usually to practice what she called human directness. She wore simple training clothes rather than formal robes, and her skin was calm blue. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Too much on my mind. The investigation. It wasn't a question." Lyra had been helping him review security reports, her royal access opening doors that would have been closed to him otherwise. He pulled up a holographic display from his wrist device, something the Valerium had given him to access palace systems. "Look at these shipping records. 3 times in the past month, supply ships arrived at the palace with cargo that wasn't properly logged. The authorization codes trace back to the royal family, but not to your mother." Lyra leaned in, studying the data. Her expression darkened. "That authorization code belongs to my aunt, Duchess Vara." Jake had met Vara once at a formal dinner. The Queen's younger sister was elegant and charming, but something about her energy field had seemed off to him. Too controlled. Too perfect. "Could she be involved with the shadow cast?" Lyra asked quietly. "I don't know. But someone with royal authority is smuggling something into the palace. We need to find out what." Over the next week, they worked together carefully, not wanting to alert Vara that she was being investigated. Jake suggested approaching it like a military intelligence operation. Watch, gather evidence, and don't move until you're certain. Chris helped by analyzing the technological signatures of the smuggled goods. "This is high-end stuff," he said one evening in Jake's rooms. "Military-grade communications equipment, weapons components, and something else I can't identify. It's not Valerium technology." "Foreign," Amy said. She'd been researching the political landscape of the sector. "There are several species that would benefit from destabilizing the Valerium Empire. The Geran Collective is the most likely. They've been trying to expand their territory for decades, but the Valerium have always been too strong to challenge directly." Jake assembled the pieces. "So, Vara is working with the Shadow Caste and the Geran. But why? What does she gain?" Princess Lyra's answer came slowly, painfully. "The throne. If my mother is discredited or killed, and if something happens to me, the succession would pass to Vara. She is next in line after me." The implications settled over the room like a weight. "We need to tell the Queen," Amy said. "With what evidence?" Jake countered. "Suspicious shipping records and guesswork? Vara is clever. She'll have covered her tracks. We need solid proof." "Then we get proof," Lyra said firmly. Her skin flashed determined red. "There is a royal ball in 3 days. Everyone who matters will attend. If Vara is planning something, that would be the time to strike." Jake didn't like it, but she was right. The Festival of Stars, the biggest celebration of the Valerium year. Security would be relaxed in accordance with tradition. The palace would be full of guests. Perfect conditions for a coup. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Jake worked with Commander Cephas to quietly increase security without making it obvious. Amy monitored communications for any unusual patterns. Chris set up hidden sensors to track energy signatures that might indicate cloaked infiltrators. Princess Lyra did something unexpected. She asked Jake to teach her how to fight. "Your guards can protect you," Jake said, surprised. "My guards failed to see an assassin standing 15 feet from me," she replied. "You saw him. You acted. I want to be able to protect myself the way humans do. Not with technology or servants, but with my own strength." So Jake taught her basic self-defense in the palace training room. She was quick to learn, her Valerium reflexes actually faster than human ones. But she lacked the instinct for violence that came from humanity's rough history. "You hesitate," Jake told her, after she failed to complete a disabling move for the 3rd time. "You're thinking too much about hurting your opponent." "I do not want to hurt anyone, but if someone is trying to kill you, you don't have the luxury of being noble. You do what you must to survive." She tried again, and this time completed the move. Jake ended up on the mat, genuinely surprised. "Better," he said, with a grin. Their friendship had grown into something real during these weeks. Lyra was not the sheltered princess he'd expected. She was intelligent, curious, and increasingly frustrated with the limitations her society placed on her. She asked him endless questions about Earth, about democracy and individual freedom, and the messy chaos of human government. "It sounds terrible," she said after he described a particularly contentious Earth election. "All that conflict and disagreement." "It is terrible sometimes," Jake admitted. "But it's also honest. People get to choose, even if they choose badly. That's worth something. My people do not get to choose. They are born into their caste, and that is their fate forever." "Is that right?" Jake had learned to be careful with political statements, but Lyra deserved honesty. "No, I don't think it is." Her skin showed the purple of deep thought. "Neither do I." The night of the Festival of Stars arrived. The palace was transformed into something from a dream. Lights floated in the air, without visible support. Music played from no identifiable source. Guests from 100 worlds filled the halls in a riot of colors and forms. Jake wore a formal uniform that had been specially made for him, incorporating both human and Valerium design elements. He stood near Princess Lyra as she greeted guests, playing his role as honored member of the royal household. Queen Aurelia was magnificent, in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. Duchess Vara stood beside her sister, elegant in deep red, her skin showing perfect courtly calm. But Jake could see Vara's energy field, and it was anything but calm. It roiled with suppressed tension and anticipation. Something was going to happen tonight. He caught Commander Cephas's eye across the room and gave a subtle signal. The commander nodded and discreetly positioned more guards. Amy and Chris were mingling with guests, their devices scanning for anomalies. Chris had explained that the Gerin technology had a particular energy signature. If it was in the palace, he would find it. The celebration continued for hours. Dancing, speeches, demonstrations of technology and art from various worlds. Jake forced himself to stay alert, despite the spectacle. Then Chris's voice came through Jake's earpiece. "Got something. East Wing, 3rd level. 3 sources of Gerin energy signatures. They're trying to mask it, but I've got a lock." Jake moved smoothly through the crowd, not running, but not wasting time. He signaled Cephas, and several guards followed. The East Wing was supposed to be empty during the festival, but when they arrived, they found a group of Shadowcast workers gathered around crates of equipment that definitely wasn't part of the palace inventory. "Stop right there," Cephas commanded. The workers scattered, but the guards were faster. They detained them efficiently. Jake moved to the crates and opened one. Inside were weapons, dozens of them. Zerin plasma rifles designed to overload Valerium shields. "This is enough firepower to take over the palace," Jake said quietly. A slow clapping sound echoed through the corridor. Duchess Vara emerged from the shadows, her skin now showing her true colors. Dark red anger mixed with black determination. "Clever human," she said. "I underestimated you. That was my mistake." "Why?" Jake asked. "Why betray your own sister?" "Because she is weak," Vara spat. "She clings to old ways while refusing to enforce them properly. She sees the Shadowcast suffering and feels guilt, but she will not give them freedom because tradition forbids it. She wants change, but lacks the courage to seize it. The Empire is dying because of leaders like her." "So you would kill her and take the throne?" "I would save my people by forcing change through strength. The Gerin will help me break the nobility's power. Then I will rebuild our empire into something stronger." "Through violence and betrayal," Jake said. "That's not strength, that's just destruction." "You do not understand our ways, human." "Maybe not. But I understand that betraying family is wrong in any culture." Vara smiled coldly. "You think you have won by finding these weapons? This was only one cache. There are others, and my allies are already moving. From somewhere in the palace came the sound of explosions. The coup had begun. The palace shook as another explosion echoed through the corridors. Jake's enhanced perception could feel the energy signatures of multiple breaches in the palace defenses. Vara had planned this well. While everyone was distracted by the festival, her forces had been moving into position. "Secure the Duchess," Commander Sethis ordered his guards. They moved to restrain Vara, but she triggered a personal shield device. Energy crackled around her body, making her untouchable. "You cannot hold me," she said with a cold smile, "and you cannot stop what has already begun. The shadow cast rises tonight, with Zaren's support. My sister's reign ends now." She ran, her shield allowing her to push through the guards who tried to stop her. Jake started to follow, but Sethis grabbed his arm. "Let her go. We must protect the queen and princess." Jake knew he was right. They ran back toward the Great Hall. Through his earpiece, he could hear Amy coordinating with Chris. "Multiple breach points," Amy reported. "Shadowcast fighters armed with Zaren weapons are entering through the east and north wings. Palace Guard is responding, but they're outnumbered." "Where's the queen?" Jake asked. "Great Hall. She's evacuating the guests, but refusing to leave herself." Of course she was. Jake pushed himself to run faster, his enhanced body responding better than it would have before the Valerium treatment. He burst into the Great Hall to find chaos. Guests were streaming toward the exits, while palace guards formed defensive lines. Queen Aurelia stood at the center of the hall, her skin flashing commands in colors that all Valerium would understand. Princess Lyra was at her mother's side, helping direct the evacuation. "Your Majesty, you need to get to safety." "I will not abandon my palace or my people," Aurelia said firmly. "Mother, please," Lyra urged. The doors at the far end of the hall exploded inward. Shadowcast fighters poured through, their Zaren weapons already firing. The palace guards returned fire, and the Great Hall became a battlefield. Jake pulled both the queen and princess down behind a decorative pillar as plasma bolts scorched the air above them. "I need you both to stay down," Jake said. "This is my responsibility," Aurelia insisted. "I am the queen. And I'm a soldier who has actually fought in battles before. Please, trust me." Something in his voice or his energy field must have convinced her, because she nodded. "What do you need?" "Commander Sethis," Jake called. The commander was coordinating the defense from behind another pillar. "We need to hold this position until reinforcements arrive." "How long?" 10 minutes. Maybe 15. The city garrison has been alerted." "Then we hold for 15 minutes. Jake assessed the situation with a tactical eye. The attackers had numbers and superior weapons, but they were not trained soldiers. They were workers and laborers who had been given guns and told to fight. The palace guards were fewer, but better disciplined. "We need to funnel them," Jake said to Sethis. "Force them to come through controlled choke points where your guards can cut them down." "How do we do that?" Jake looked around the Great Hall. The Valarium loved their technology. He spotted the ornamental pillars that lined the hall, each one containing environmental controls and energy conduits. "Chris," he said into his earpiece, "can you remotely trigger the environmental systems to create barriers?" "Give me a minute." The sound of rapid typing came through. "Okay. I can seal sections of the hall using the emergency containment fields. It'll trap some of our people, but it'll divide the attackers too." "Do it." Walls of shimmering energy appeared throughout the hall, dividing the space into sections. Attackers who had been rushing forward found themselves cut off from their allies. Palace guards immediately took advantage, overwhelming the isolated groups. But more attackers kept coming through the breached doors. "We can't hold forever," Sethis said grimly. Princess Lyra touched Jake's arm. "Let me help. I have been learning from you, remember?" Before Jake could stop her, she stepped out from behind the pillar. Her skin blazed with royal purple and commanding red. She spoke in the Valerian language, her voice somehow carrying over the sounds of battle. Jake couldn't understand all the words, but he felt their impact. The Shadowcast fighters hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. "She is reminding them that she is their princess," Queen Aurelia said quietly. "That she has always advocated for their rights. That she will reform the caste system if they will stop this violence." Several of the attackers actually stopped fighting, but others, more committed or more desperate, continued to advance. One of them aimed directly at Princess Lyra. Jake moved without thinking, his enhanced reflexes carrying him forward faster than any normal human could move. He tackled Lyra again, just like he had at the ceremony, and they rolled behind cover as plasma bolts struck where she had been standing. "You need to stop putting yourself in danger," Jake said. "You need to stop saving me," Lyra replied, but she was smiling, despite the fear in her eyes. Then Jake saw movement in the shadows at the edge of the hall. His enhanced perception picked up a familiar energy signature. Duchess Vara was circling around, trying to reach the queen. "Sethis, protect the queen," Jake ordered. He ran after Vara, weaving between the fighting. He found her near the throne room doors. She was working on the locking mechanism, trying to gain access to the palace control systems housed there. If she reached them, she could override all the security and let more attackers into the palace. "It's over, Vara," Jake said. "Even if you win tonight, you'll never have legitimate authority. You'll be seen as a traitor forever." She turned to face him, her personal shield still active. "I will be seen as the one who had the courage to do what was necessary. History is written by the victors, human. Maybe, but you won't be the victor." She laughed. "You think you can stop me? You are one man, enhanced or not. I have an army. An army that's having second thoughts, now that your niece has reminded them what they're really fighting for. Change doesn't have to come through bloodshed." Spoken like a naive child, the nobility will never give up their power willingly. "The queen was already planning reforms," Jake said. It was partially a bluff, but he'd seen the way Aurelia looked at him when he talked about human democracy. She knows the system is broken. She was just moving slowly because she wanted to do it right. Too slow, always too slow. Our people suffer while she contemplates and discusses. Jake tried a different approach. "You really think the Jaren will let you rule freely once they've helped you take power? They'll own you. The Empire will become their puppet state." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vara's face. Her skin showed a brief flash of yellow doubt. "I have negotiated agreements," she said, but her voice was less certain. "Politicians always think they're smarter than they are," Jake said. "Trust me. I've seen this pattern on Earth dozens of times. You use foreign help to overthrow the existing power, and then the foreigners never leave. You'll have traded one flawed system for occupation." More explosions rocked the palace, but these sounded different. Jake's earpiece crackled with Amy's voice. "City garrison has arrived. They're driving back the attackers at all entry points. The coup is failing." Vara heard it too, through her own communication device. Her skin flashed through multiple colors rapidly: anger, fear, desperation, and finally a dark resignation. "I did this for my people," she said quietly. "No," Jake replied. "You did this for yourself. If you cared about your people, you would have worked with your sister to change things peacefully. This was about power and pride." The fighting in the Great Hall was dying down. City garrison soldiers in heavier armor were securing the area. Commander Sethis appeared with a squad of guards. "Duchess Vera, you are under arrest for treason against the crown," he said formally. Vera deactivated her shield. She looked tired suddenly, older. "I suppose I am." They took her away. Jake returned to the Great Hall to find Queen Aurelia sitting on the steps leading to her throne, looking exhausted. Princess Lyra sat beside her. Both of them were unharmed. Amy and Chris hurried over to Jake. "You okay, Captain?" Chris asked. I've been better. You two? We're fine. That was intense. The queen stood and approached Jake. Her skin showed deep purple thoughtfulness mixed with silver gratitude. Once again, you have protected my family, she said, and this time, you have also saved my empire. I just did what needed doing, Your Majesty. You exposed a conspiracy. You helped defend this palace. You even tried to reason with a traitor rather than simply fighting her. The Queen's expression softened. You have given me much to think about, Captain Morrison. My sister was wrong in her methods, but she was not wrong about everything. Our system is flawed. Change must come. Princess Lyra stood beside her mother. I propose that we begin that change now, starting with releasing Captain Morrison from his debt. The Queen looked surprised. Lyra, we have discussed this. The law is clear. The law is old, Mother. And as Captain Morrison has shown us, sometimes honoring the spirit of a law means breaking its letter. He saved my life. Keeping him here against his will does not honor that sacrifice. It dishonors it. Aurelia was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, a genuine expression that lit up her face. When did you become so wise, daughter? I learned from a human who was willing to die for someone he had never met. The Queen turned to Jake. I have made a decision. You will be released from the debt of sacred blood. But I wish to create something new. A bond between our peoples based not on obligation, but on friendship. I name you Eternal Friend of the Crown. You may come and go freely, and humanity will be considered a sister species to the Valerium. Jake felt something loosen in his chest that he hadn't realized was tight. Thank you, Your Majesty. That means more than you know. When will you leave? Lyra asked. She looked sad, despite her brave smile. Soon, Jake said, but not forever. Friends visit each other, right? I will hold you to that promise. 3 days later, the horizon's edge was prepared for departure. The palace had been repaired. Duchess Vara was in custody, awaiting trial. The Shadowcast leaders who had participated in the coup were being offered amnesty in exchange for participating in a new council that would advise the Queen on reforms. It was a start. Queen Aurelia came to see them off personally. I have sent a message to your Earth government, a formal proposal for an alliance and cultural exchange program. I hope they will accept. They will, Jake said confidently. This is too important to refuse. Princess Lyra gave him a small device. This contains my personal communication code. When you return, contact me directly. I will show you what changes we have made. I look forward to it, Princess. Amy, Chris, and Jake boarded their ship. As they lifted off from Thessara Prime, Jake looked back at the crystal towers and the palace that had been his prison and his home for 2 months. Think you'll really come back? Chris asked. He could still see the energy fields of the Valerium with his enhanced perception. Still feel the connection to the place that had changed him. Yeah, he said. I think I will. Because sometimes being human meant more than just physical traits or Earth citizenship. Sometimes it meant forming bonds across impossible distances, bridging gaps between species, and having the courage to act when action was needed. That was what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of aliens. That was why humanity would find its place among the stars. Not through superior technology or military might, but through the simple act of caring about others, even when it cost everything. The horizon's edge jumped to faster than light speed, carrying them home. But Jake knew that part of him would always remain on Thessara Prime, in a palace garden where a human had taught a princess about freedom, and a princess had taught a human about honor. The galaxy was vast and strange and full of wonders, and humanity was ready for it.